Let's start this day with a Viva Lafayette, shall we? Viva Lafayette! My name's Chuck Schwam, and I'm the Executive Director of the American Friends of Lafayette. I'm honored to be here exactly 200 years ago today, where Lafayette stood. The American Friends of Lafayette were born in 1932. We have over 2,000 members across the country, and we're following Lafayette's footsteps exactly as it happened 200 years ago. Every day, 400 days, 6,000 miles, we'll be there, and we're here today because this is where Lafayette was. I'd like to thank a few people. Number one, I'd like to thank Lieutenant Governor Billy Nungesser for having us here today. I'd like to thank Kristen Shannon with the Louisiana State Museum, and I'd like to thank the organizers of the French Quarter Fest. Now, although Lafayette was exactly here today, 200 years ago, I want to talk about another date. When Lafayette returned to the United States 200 years ago, he was greeted with great fanfare. We estimate over 4 million people saw Lafayette during his grand tour of 1824 and 1825. He was truly America's first rock star. The outpouring of love and affection was palpable throughout the 24 states. Men cheered, ladies swooned, the country was abuzz. However, on December 10th, 1824, things were a little different. As Lafayette's carriage moved through the streets of Washington, D.C. towards the United States Capitol, Americans, of course, lined the streets to get a glimpse of the last living major general from the Revolutionary War. But this time, however, they were silent. This was an important moment that deserved respect and attention. General Lafayette was to be the very first foreign dignitary to address Congress. The significance of the day continued when Lafayette arrived at the Capitol building. Members of Congress crowded together in the House of Representatives, while visitors' balcony was overflowing with Americans who wanted to bear witness to this historic moment. Everyone was silent when Henry Clay met Lafayette with warm words of welcome. Clay spoke about the progress the United States had made since Lafayette was there. He boasted about the advances that they made in science, agriculture, and arts. He touted the increase in population and their constant devotion to freedom for all. Then Lafayette took his spot at the speaker's podium as everyone anxiously awaited. "My obligations to the United States," Lafayette said, "surpass greatly the services that I have rendered them." Lafayette was indicating that he had more to give. Lafayette was indicating that he owed us more, and Lafayette delivered. During his 13 months in the United States, Lafayette reminded Americans that our first doctrine as a new country indicated that all people were created equal. Lafayette reminded Americans not with words, but with actions. He did so by hugging men of color in public, like American spy James Armistead Lafayette. He did so by meeting with Native Americans along the tour, sympathizing with their plight. He did so by treating women as the intellectual equals that they were. And he did this for everybody to see. Lafayette reminded Americans that although they have accomplished a great deal, there was more work to be done. If Lafayette were here today, I'm sure he would be proud of our accomplishments, but would still remind us that we must continue to live up to the values that formed our country. Thank you all for being here. If you want to learn more about the Bicentennial, visit us at Lafayette200.org. Now it's my great pleasure to stop talking and introduce to you General Lafayette!
Bonjour, citoyens! Ah, mesdames et messieurs, chers amis, good people of Nouvelle-Orléans, my dear friends, please do allow me an introduction. The name is General Lafayette, though I believe most of you, no doubt, know me far better by my name of the Ancien Régime, of the old order of the Revolution here in America, and that, of course, is Marie-Joseph Polivron-Gilbert de Montier, le Marquis de Lafayette. Would you like to repeat that, monsieur? What a pleasure and honor it is to see all of you here on this simply magnificent day, how it is hard to believe it is already April of 1825, but nonetheless, a day of celebration, is it not? Indeed, my friends, we are celebrating many things, but I am celebrating my first return back to America after 40 long years. In truth, my friends, the last time I set foot upon American soil was just after the signing of the Treaty of Paris, which of course occurred in September of 1783, ending the Great War for American freedom. So thus, in 1784, I returned for 6 months to celebrate with all of you, my beloved brothers and sisters here in America. But, my dear friends, even though 40 years have passed, we must never forget how that independence was in fact achieved. For all of those brave soldiers, sailors, and Marines alike, both American, French, and Spanish, and all who fought for American freedom, let us applaud them all! Well, no doubt you have picked up a gazette and you realize that I have been invited back to America, courtesy of your very own President of these United States, Monsieur James Monroe, to be what he is calling a guest of the nation, to tour all 24 United States. Can you imagine, madame? 24. Do you realize the last time I was here you had but 13? Oh, goodness, at this rate, madame, you'll have as many as 50 one day. Could you imagine? Well, as so many adventures begin, mine began in New York City on the 16th day of August of the year 1824, in front of 90,000 of its inhabitants. What a welcome. Indeed, I traveled northwards into Connecticut, Rhode Island, up to Massachusetts Bay, even to Boston, and onwards to Quincy, where I met with your second president, Monsieur John Adams. You know, upon reflection, it was he and Monsieur Jefferson who once said of me that I had a canine appetite for popularity. I'm not sure what he meant by that, but I'm sure it was a pleasant visit. Nonetheless, we traveled southwards. We went to that great city of Philadelphia, where I went to that place where you declared for independence. In fact, my friends, I refer to it as Independence Hall, and I hope that name will stick. Onwards to Baltimore, and then, of course, to the Federal City, where I met and I thanked the President of the United States for his kind invitation. But now I have come to Louisiana. Louisiana, the most French of the states here in America. And what better place to be than here in Nouvelle-Orléans, amongst all of you, my beloved new friends. Now, dear friends, the last time I would meet His Excellency General Washington was 1784. We had spent 2 glorious weeks together at his beloved Mount Vernon, there reflecting upon the war and the future of this nation. We rode on to a place called Annapolis in Maryland, said goodbye to many officers we had the honor and privilege to have served with, and then onwards to a place called Marlborough in Maryland. That is where I would say my goodbyes. But not before the General said this to me. He said, Monsieur le Marquis, I sincerely believe that the easy part was winning this war. Oh, I could not imagine he would say such a thing after all of the trials and tribulations we had been through, but he explained himself further by saying, I do believe that the much more difficult part will be for these 13 former colonies that have now formed 13 United States, well, getting along with one another, surviving into the future. Well, my dear friends, look at how far you have gone. From 13 to 24 United States, you have endured war, civil strife, turmoil, yet you have endured. And why is that? Well, I dare say it is because of the foundation that was built at the price of so much sacrifice and blood by you, the American patriot. In fact, my friends, I will go further. I will say that one day this nation shall serve as a beacon for all other nations to look to as the truest example of freedom and of independence. God bless you all, my dear friends, and God bless this great nation of the United States of America! I thank you, my dear friends. I am a firm believer that all of the answers to the future might be found in the past if we study our history. And places like this great city of Nouvelle-Orléans, which has such a rich history to tell, is where we can learn from it. I come from a place called Colonial Williamsburg, there in Williamsburg, Virginia. And there we wholeheartedly believe in teaching the past to make better citizens of the future. So now, my friends, without further ado, I present to you the Lieutenant Governor of this great state of Louisiana.
So, before I speak, the Consul General of France would like to say a few words, and he goes before the Lieutenant Governor. He ranks higher. So, let's give him a round.
Bonjour à tous. Merci beaucoup d'être ici. Thank you very much for being here. I'm Rodolphe Sambou, the Consul General of France in Louisiana, and we are delighted to have seen and witnessed the return of Lafayette in New Orleans. It's something very important because Lafayette, he was 19 years old. He was fighting for, he left his family, he left his home, he left his comfort, because he believed in something very strong, in its ideals. He believed in the ideals of freedom for people. He believed the ideal of independence, and it's something very important to remind today. And he left this comfort to come to the United States to fight for this very strong ideal, and it's something we have to remind. And he's a powerful witness of the friendship between France and the United States. And in this challenging time, I think it's something very important to remind and to cherish this heritage. Merci. Vive Lafayette, vive la France, vive les États-Unis, and long live to the friendship between France and the United States. Vive Lafayette. Merci beaucoup.
Hey, thank you. What a great day for Louisiana. Thank all of you for being here, for those that live here, those that have come from near and far, for our people from France that are here. Let's give them a round. And I would like the General to join me on the stage as I read this proclamation. And if you don't get a chance today, come back and see the incredible exhibit of the General and his life here and all the great things he did at the Cabildo. And long before that beautiful statue in the middle of the square was here, there was a large arch built there that actually has a picture of it on the front of the Cabildo today, of which stood higher than the Padalbo apartments there in the middle of the square in your honor. So it is with great honor that I give you this proclamation today, General. General Lafayette, for your bravery and leadership during the American Revolution was important to securing our nation's independence. Whereas General Lafayette dedicated his life to the pursuit of liberty, equality, and democracy. Here in Louisiana and his home of France, standing strong as an advocate for human rights and justice. And whereas his accomplishments led to him being offered the role of governor of the state of Louisiana Purchased Territory. Boy, we wish you would have taken that role. Whereas he was gifted property in New Orleans by the United States of America for his service and contributions. Whereas in April in 1825, the city of New Orleans welcomed him for an historical visit, and he resided in the Cabildo for 5 days. I hope you like what we did with the place. Whereas his visit and distinguished life inspired the names of parks, cities, and other civic endowments throughout Louisiana, symbolizing his enduring impact, and inspired the Lafayette exhibit at the Cabildo today. Therefore, by the powers invested in me as Lieutenant Governor of the great state of Louisiana, I do hereby honor, recognize General Lafayette for his enduring contribution to the cause of liberty, justice, and the lasting friendship between Louisiana and France. Thank you. I've got, excuse me, I've got to thank the museum staff, the French Quarter Vest, and everybody involved in putting this great exhibit today. This is a special day for Louisiana. Thank you again, General, and let's let the party begin.
Magazine, it's you with the cathedral behind it. I love it. All this other bullshit. I love it. I love it. I love it.